Welcome back to the Rhonda Swan Show. And I now not only have my co-host, Hanalei Swan, but I have a very, very exciting guest and a very dear friend to our family, right?
Yeah.
And many of you may know this man as the world-leading human behavioral specialist, researcher, best-selling author, and educator. He's also the founder of the Demartini Method. That's a little hint, which is a revolutionary tool in modern psychology. But of course, this is Dr. John Demartini. He's also authored 40 books that have been translated into 39 different languages. Wow, Dr. John. And presented his insights alongside some of the world's most influential people, including Sir Richard Branson and Deepak Chopra. Harnessing almost 5 decades of research across multiple disciplines, Dr. John Demartini shares his life, business, financial relationship, and leadership empowerment strategies with people all over the globe, enabling them to transform their lives according to their highest values. Dr. John Demartini, a big Swan family hug. Welcome to our show.
Wow, I've been looking forward to this. It's great to see you all, and thank you for inviting me on your show.
It's so cool, right?
Yeah,
so Hanalei and I were talking. The last time we saw you was when? When do you remember?
I think it was about 4 years ago. We were in London, was it, for one of your events. It was really amazing last time we got to see you. So it's nice to reconnect again.
Yeah, do you remember, Dr. John, the last time? How small Hanalei was?
Yes, I can see the distinct difference, and I remember her being up there at the stage, and also before that when we met in Las Vegas. So I have the whole thing in my mind there.
Yeah, and that was what Hanalei and I were talking about that very first time. And I think this is a really good topic, right? Because you actually highlighted something in the way that we were parenting in Hanalei when it comes to our highest values, right? And you were talking at that Vegas event about the value factor. And Hanalei spoke on stage in front of you, and you followed through, and you really highlighted something that we were aware of what we were doing, but we weren't quite aware. Can you go into that, that topic and what value factor really stands for, and how you saw, certainly in the way we've parented Hanalei, how that can really affect society moving forward?
Well, my observation, I've been blessed to teach for 5 decades now. In just about 2 weeks, it'll be 5 decades.
Wow.
And 45 years of that have been revolving around what drives human beings. And human values underlies that. And every human being has a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most to least important in their life, that determines how they perceive the world, decide in the world, and act in the world. And whatever is highest on that list of values, they are spontaneously inspired from within to act upon them. And whatever is lower on the list of values, they require extrinsic motivation to get them to do it. So they're disciplined, reliable, and focused on the highest, but they need a little incentive down below, and they procrastinate, hesitate, frustrate otherwise. So when anybody sets a goal, an attention or intention to fulfill something, if it is aligned and congruent with what they value most, they have an increasing probability of achieving it. And they tend to walk their talk and live aligned and congruent and wake up the leadership skill. When they are not living by the highest and attempting to subordinate to others, please other people, not know who they are, try to be somebody they're not, and be inauthentic, they require external motivation, and they're transiently stimulated but not sustainable in their drive. Now, when I was in Las Vegas when we met, one thing that I noticed was the high degree of congruency in Hanalei. And that was very inspiring to see. It was heart-opening. And that's why I believe she's excelled so well, because it's her, when you're walking your talk, you're not sitting there and distracting yourself as easily. You're more focused, and you build momentum. You become incrementally momentum building and unstoppable.
Yeah, I think you can relate to that. So, and thank you because that just brings us right back to, like the way Hanalei has evolved. And, because you highlighted that in us, we overly highlighted it certainly in the Hanalei. Can I ask you to share as well, so we can create this conversation on how, your life has now been, even since the short time that you haven't seen Dr. Demartini, and how you've tapped into really leaning into your authenticity and your purest intentions.
Yeah, do you want me to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, share the story, and because I think you'll really love to hear it. And then we can get always some more insights as well.
Yeah. For me, growing up, it's always been living by my highest values. This was just something that was instilled from my parents from a really young age. And I remember after meeting with you especially, I just kind of realized more that I really had the power to be able to empower myself and follow what brought me the most happiness. And I felt like that was the biggest takeaway for me, was realizing that I have the potential to create what I really believe in. Like, when you put your mind to something, you can create so much. And for me, my values were constantly creating, learning, growing in art and fashion, creative things, and wanting to inspire people off of that. I wanted to ask you, because you gave me some really good advice. I remember I was, while we were in London Fashion Week, I believe, I remember feeling very self-conscious at times, walking around and feeling like I'm not as good as the other designers and whatnot.
Because you were how old?
I was about 12.
11? Almost, yeah.
And it may sound...
11 when I met you.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. I remember thinking wow, I'm not as good as these people, and just feeling really critical. And I remember you telling me, do you see perfection in others? And I said, yes. I'm like, I see perfection in all these. You're like, do you see flaws in others? I'm like, yeah, I see where their flaws can be. And you told me, you're like, all of these things that you see in others, you can see in yourself. They all have perfections. They all have flaws. If you can see flaws in yourself, you can find those perfections as well. And that was a huge piece of advice that you gave me that I really took away, that made me realize, wow, I do have the potential to grow. I do have the potential to improve my perfections and all these different things. And I wanted to ask you, because that was such a good piece of advice for me, is there any advice you have for my generation or younger teens who are trying to figure out what their values might be, or trying to figure out that bit of empowerment and confidence to be able to follow their dreams or passions? Is there that one piece of advice you always go to?
I'm sure he's got many.
Well, first of all, it was John Milton who said that one man's heaven is another man's hell.
Oh, wow.
And we sometimes, when a young man meets a beautiful girl and he's enamored and infatuated, he thinks, oh my God, he's conscious of all the upsides and unconscious of the downsides. And he goes, oh, he has an impulse to want to hold her hand, these kind of things. But over time, he eventually discovers that some of the traits and actions that she demonstrates has a bit of challenges to them. And the same thing when the girl meets a guy, she may think, oh, he's very intelligent or something. But then you find out, well, that intelligence also has with it arguments and thinking they're right, and sometimes resistance and not wanting to listen because they think they know. So the very trait that we think are the flaws have the perfection. And the very things we think of the perfection also have the so-called flaws. And there's a hidden order in both of them. And you don't want to be without both. And these are artificial labels we put on things until we see fully consciously both sides, and then realize that there's nothing to get rid of. There's nothing to seek. It's already present. I always say at the level of the essence of the soul, nothing's missing in us. But at the level of the existence of the senses, things appear to be missing in us. And the only things that appear to be missing in us are all the things we're too proud or too humble to admit that we see in others inside ourselves. So reflective awareness is digging deeper with introspection and discovering inside us whatever we see in others. When we do, we level the playing field and we don't label it one way or the other. We just see that they're a reflection of us, and it's making sure that we leave nothing unloved in ourselves, and we utilize them as our teacher to wake us up to anything we might have judged. So for young people who are sometimes wiser than older people, they're there to go and discover what their life demonstrates that they spontaneously do, that they're committed to, and not disturb that or filter that by trying to fit in to the herd around them. You know, how are we going to make a difference and stand out if we're fitting in? We have to be willing and courageous enough to be our authentic self and give ourselves permission to shine as an authentic self instead of cloud ourselves trying to be all these other people. As Einstein said, if you're a cat expecting to swim like a fish, you'll beat yourself up. And if you're a fish expecting yourself to climb a tree, you're going to beat yourself up. But if you honor yourself that you're a fish or a cat, you're going to shine. So whatever the age, because I think that sometimes even people up in age have yet to understand that principle, to honor themselves for both sides. I'm not a nice person. I'm not a mean person. I'm a human being that has the capacity that if you support my values, I can be nice. You challenge my values, I can be mean. I'm all the above. And one's not good and the other bad. One's not the right one and one's the wrong one. They're both necessary in order for us to fulfill our mission. And so you want to be able to love all parts of yourself. As the Buddha says, the desire to obtain and to seek that which is unobtainable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is a source of human suffering.
Yeah.
But when we are encompassing and inclusive and embracing to our whole nature and live congruently with what's really intrinsically calling us to act upon, we end up loving ourselves and then exemplifying that love for other people.
So strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Dr. John, I think that whenever we learn from you and we hear from you, it's like, it brings us, back into this space to really think about like, how can we, continue to help even society, right? Like society, everyone's a little scared now, even though there was so much personal development, and I think there's so much more personal development in the world now. How do you see, where we're going and what can we do even more so to, to bring us back into that love and to be able to really see in each other, like what our truest essence are. Like, where do you think that we're going with this? Because this is something that we talk all the time with Hanalei about. Well,
I think that Einstein said it again. He said that the greatest teacher is exemplification.
Yeah.
So, and it was Phelps, 28 medals, who said, if I'm standing about to dive into the water, if I look leftward or rightward to my competitors, I've lost the race.
Yep.
But if I look straight ahead on my mission and don't get distracted by comparison through judgment, which disempowers me. See, if I infatuate with somebody, I'm too humble to admit what I see in them is inside me, and I have a disowned part. I lose my power. If I resent somebody, I'm too proud to admit what I see in them is inside me, and I lose my power. But if I love them and have equanimity within me and equity between myself and them, I don't lose my power and I'm not distracted by them. We're all working together towards our objective. And so my job is to not necessarily try to judge the world or fix the world. My job is to exemplify authenticity and congruency with sustainable fair exchange in an equitable manner and demonstrate what's possible as a human being. And the ripple effect of that is unstoppable.
Yeah. All right. So this is really good. I think this could be a good relation to what you just said is, so how does then, and I'm going to ask this for you because I think you deal with right now, like Hanalei's, rather grounded. She knows who she is. And, I know that you're working on this and I might be speaking for you. Yet you also deal or communicate or around others that don't quite get that, right? So how do you then exemplify yet are also still, dealing with or attempting to work with those that don't quite get it? Is that kind of something that happens for you a bit?
Yeah.
I mean, it happens for me, so I'm talking for myself, but I know that, is that open up for you, like when you're?
Would you be able to explain just a little bit more?
Yeah, because what Dr. D's saying is like,
Yeah.
we're if we can just exemplify who we are and accept that there's gaps or there's wins, and that, allow, instead of judging, allow those to be themselves. How does, especially in the teens, years, I'm getting a bit older, and I just kind of say, okay, it is what it is, and just stay in my space. Yet I feel like sometimes it gets a bit harder for them, and it's harder to teach or to exemplify to a teen that hasn't been to hundreds of events like she has, or has a mentor like you in her life. How can Hanalei or others that are working through this process show up for those that may not really even quite get it?
Well, not everybody's, you can share things with people, but you can lead them to the water, but you can't make them drink.
There you go.
So you do your best to learn as many diverse skills of communicating what will be of value to people in terms of their values.
Yeah.
I'll give an example. I had a young boy who, I'm not sure his age, I'm going to guess 13. And he was brought into my clinic many years ago by his mom. And he was running back and forth from one wall to the next in a 10-foot room.
Wow.
It was labeled hyperactivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
ADHD.
Yeah.
And he was just running back and forth, talking to himself, running back and forth. And the mother she was oblivious to it because she's so used to it. But it was a little bit distracting. And I said, what does your son do that he loves to do, that he doesn't have to be reminded to do when he's engaged and focused?
Yeah.
And she goes, he loves trains. He builds model trains. He reads about trains. He has posters of trains. He goes and want to watch trains. When he's doing that, he seems to be just really present. I said, so he has a concentrated value system, and trains are very high in his value. And his room is filled with pictures of trains, books of trains, videos of trains. So it's obvious that trains are important to him. So I stopped him. He was running back and forth, and I got that from her. And I said, what's the longest train you've ever seen? How many cars does it have? And so he's starting to run, and he stops, and he goes, 250 cars. I said, great. How many were the box cars? Ooh. About 60. I said, you have great numbers. You have some mathematical skills. How many were flatbeds? And how many were tanker cars? And how many was the caboose? And how many were cars carrying cars? And I started asking him questions. And how many countries did the things come from? What language is on it? How wide is the axles? And how wide is the rail? And I started asking him questions. And as long as I was asking him questions on cars, he stopped. He was present. He was engaged. He asked his mom, take me to a thing. I want to go measure that. So we decided that we were going to go and let him go and interact with the cars, which are nearby where it was. There was a train there, nearby, going by. And he was going to count all the cars. And as long as he was doing that, he was engaged and focused and present and not hyperactive. And all the labels at school by all the teachers and the counselors and the psychologists and the psychiatric people promoting drugs were all putting a label on him, ADHD, instead of caring enough to find out what his highest value was and then communicating all the classes in terms of it.
Yeah.
Now, what was interesting is I told her, if he wants to learn math, let's do everything in math, the ratios of all the cars, the width, the depth, the height. Let's go and measure all those on a stationary train, and let's go and have him go out and do these projects and learn math. And then look at all the languages where all these cars are coming through. And then go and find out who manufactured it, turn about business. And we took all of his classes and started linking the classes to trains. And his level of engagement in school went up. His ADHD went down. He got to be more of an expert on that. I asked her to go to a teacher and have him do presentations on trains for the class so he can excel and be a leader. And this young boy, who is labeled, started to excel, started to lead naturally, because we all want to lead in what we value most. And he started to have full presence, and that brought him his blood glucose and oxygen into his forebrain, into executive center, which overruled his amygdala, which was running all over the place. And he became centered. And the label that was given to him was because of an incompetent not knowing how to communicate in children's values and respect them.
Yeah.
So whoever you're interacting with, no matter what their age, if you find out what's really important to them and articulate them and help them engage in what's important to them, they will be more matured.
Yeah.
They'll do something very amazing. I actually think that some of the steps that Piaget and these other psychologists said that children have to go through are erroneous.
Yeah.
Those are the average for unengaged children that we're measuring things and making as a standard.
Yeah.
Young people who find out what's important to them at a young age and get focused on it excel over those that are just sitting there, having to go to school, not fully engaged, having to do it, not loving to do it. So that's the advantage that Hanalei has. She's already ahead of the game because she already knows herself and is already taking actions towards fulfilling what's important to her. And she cares about humanity, which is a sign. Whenever you're doing something behind your values, you become philanthropic. Whenever you're going doing something low on your values, you become debaucherous. So teenagers that are unengaged, they'll go out and drink and party and engage, that excessively. But the ones that are engaged, they'll go out, how can we make a difference in the world, and what cause can we contribute to and do things? And they grow to ever greater concentric spheres. As it was Seneca, he said, we measure an individual by their most distant ends. How big is space and time in their minds do they carry? Do they think about what they want to do over the next 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, over the next century? How big is their vision? The more they're congruent, the bigger that vision becomes.
That's really brilliant. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, no, it's really.
Dr. John might want to. You're a very amazing example. Even now, what you just said about the humanitarian side, where she's going.
Yeah, it's really interesting to kind of pull from some of my experience as well. I remember in school, I always had a really difficult time, and I remember feeling like constantly being held back compared to the other kids. And I remember really disliking writing. I remember really having a lot of trouble with math, all these different subjects. I would have to sit in the back with my teacher and go over the spelling words that were a lot more simple than the rest of my class. And I remember because of this, I used to say to myself, oh, I'm dumb, oh, I'm not smart, oh, I'm all these things because this is what I was getting told from my class, this is what I was getting told from just how I was being in my environment. And only until I stepped out of school to start doing homeschool, I realized that all of these things that I thought were my weakest points actually became my strongest. And I remember hating everything to do with writing. I never liked it at all. And right when I stepped out of school and started having to do homeschool, I remember my teacher talking with me, kind of my mentor, and she's like, I want to, only when you're ready, let's work on something that involves writing. And I remember getting a really cool idea of a story, and I had that like sudden burst to, I need to write this down, I need to create this. And over the last actually 2 years, I've fallen in love with writing so much that it has become one of the biggest parts of my day, just dedicating towards writing this novel for about the last 2 years. And it's crazy the shift right when you start to take action on something that incorporates your highest values or what you love, which for me was storytelling. Incorporating that into writing, I've realized, wow, I'm a great writer. And I never thought about it other than how I was in school, because in school I was a terrible writer. I couldn't even write a sentence properly or grammatically right. And after actually taking time to try writing in a different way, I realized how much I loved it. So I think that's really powerful and just a similar experience.
Well, we spontaneously we spontaneously write from our heart when we're doing something we love.
Yeah.
Poetry comes out spontaneously. Inspired messages come out when we're pursuing what's meaningful.
Yeah, and it's just, Dr. John, it's a true testament to your work, and we certainly are so grateful for not only just being able to study under you and learn from you, but you being a part of Hanalei's life, because even the part about special lit teens, right? They either go into chaos or debauchery, or they become and tap into more humanitarian work, which is exactly what Hanalei has done, and maybe you could share with this, because I think, I know this is like an interview between us, but it's such a beautiful testament to the work that you teach, that if people really got this part, their kids' lives would be different, the world would be different. And, Hanalei was chosen to be the head artist of an unbelievable humanitarian project.
Yeah.
Will you share this? Because I know this is something that you see, and it's like that's that teeter-totter that I was like thinking of, like, no, these kids going this, it's like, oh, if the parents really got it, and help them get there, the kids got it. Yeah, will you share it? Because I think you'll be
the surfboard project. Yeah. So one of my biggest, highest values, if not my the highest value, I'm always just encapsulated with and have always loved to do from a really young age, has always been painting and artwork. That's always been where I've driven myself. And recently I got proposed to do a surfboard project, painting an entire surfboard for a stand for ocean health, which the ocean, I'm a surfer as well, so like having those two things collide after putting out to the world, I remember saying, I am going to be an artist. I'm going to create artwork that is meaningful to me. I'm going to do this. And I remember saying this to myself, and I'm like, I would write down every morning my affirmations. I'm like, I attract new opportunities. I attract things that are aligned with my values. I attract this. And I remember after creating a surfboard painting, someone reached out to me about collaborating on a painting all about ocean health and all about protesting to help save our ocean from, I'm not sure if you know, there's a dump that's going to happen in most likely 2023 by the Fukushima power plant by TEPCO, the electric power company. They're planning on releasing 100 million tons of radioactive contaminated wastewater into our ocean. And so when I heard this, I realized that I have the power to be able to help our ocean. I have the power to help share this information with people and teach people that this is something that we shouldn't be doing to our environment. And I realized I can do this by creating art, which is the thing that I love most in this world. And so yesterday I was painting for about 6 hours, just in flow with my headset on, and just creating the surfboard. And I realized this is what brings me the most happiness, and this is what is making a huge difference in our planet. Yeah,
and she's there. You're presenting it to the Prime Minister of Japan and the President, right, of TEPCO.
Yeah. That's the plan.
Yeah, you sent me a video or a little clip about her standing with a surfboard with her art.
Yes, that's one of them. She's got a new one. We'll have to send you.
I'm a surfer too, so that's extra special. But creative art on a surfboard that's out at sea, and then having a cause to keep the sea pure. Those are great causes, particularly to a surfer.
Yeah.
Right.
And I definitely believe that surfing has definitely influenced my values as well. As a surfer, I bet you can relate being able to stay in the ocean for up to 5 hours without any thought of time and just enjoying. I think that's where surfing has brought me more connected with myself as well. And it's where I've learned most about myself internally. So, yeah.
Well, I love surfing. I've surfed 3 times this year. I have my board on my ship. So whenever we go wherever there's some waves, I head out. But I really believe that giving ourselves permission to authentically walk our unique path of contribution, guided by the intuitive feedback and the heart of inspiration, gives permission for other people to do the same.
Truly.
And when you were asked, so how do we make a difference in the world? That's the way we make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Margaret Mead that said, never underestimate the significance of a small group of people for making a difference in the world. It is, in fact, the only thing that's made a difference is one individual with a vision and a handful of people that they inspired to go on that mission. And then that creating a secondary catalytic effect that became unstoppable, that nobody could stop because it was a mission.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I started in Hawaii in 1972, almost dying. And I had a dream when I met Paul Bragg to someday learn how to read and write and communicate and be a teacher. And now, 50 years later, I read, I write, I communicate, and I'm a teacher. So I just never gave up on my dream. And now we've reached a lot of people because of that. And it's just, you know, if you stay with something and you're doing something that's meaningful, you're just willing to embrace the pains and pleasures in the pursuit of something that inspires you.
Yeah.
And nothing can stop that. You build up a momentum that you can't stop because, you know, I always say that if you keep doing it long enough, everybody else will die out and you'll be at the top. Just stay with it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I can't imagine. See, people ask me, you know, what does my day consist of? And I say, I teach, I research, I write, and I travel. Everything else is delegated.
It's kind of like Hanalei, us, I think. We do the same.
Yeah, I delegate everything else, and I
Yeah.
only do those things. And I'm, you know, that's where my core competence. That's where I'm excellent at it. And as a result of it, I delegate all the other things to people who would love to do that. So I'm freed, not have to be thinking about that, and just be able to engage doing what is inspiring. And really, it truthfully is doable. I was the least likely individual to be able to do that when I was young. But I just learned the skills and learned the principles and the methods to do that. And that anybody can learn and then put that into operation. But if we exemplify it, people become inspired to do it. Because, you know, I get letters every day and multiple letters every day. Every single day I get letters coming in from around the world. And that is so inspiring to be able to have feedback that, hey, I started to do this and this is what's happened. I started to do this, that's what happened. It brings tears to the eyes to know that just doing what you love doing can make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
Just being true to yourself.
Yeah, and I believe that leading by example is one of the most powerful ways to inspire others. And this is something I've realized from just wanting to create more, and doing my best to not hold myself back in certain things I want to explore, and realize that whatever I'm doing that makes me the most happy, whatever brings me the most joy, will hopefully be able to affect others and inspire them that it is possible to follow that mission. It is possible to follow your values, and it is possible to create what inspires you most. So I think that's really powerful.
I believe that innately, every human being, regardless of age or gender or culture, yearns to want to be authentic. I believe that every physical symptom, every psychological symptom, every sociological symptom, every business symptom, everything goes on in our life is actually a feedback system to guide us to that state. And anytime anybody exemplifies that, there's a natural respect by people around them to respect them for doing so, and it inspires them and gives them permission to do, and a ripple effect takes off.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you share, Dr. John, a bit about the Demartini determination value process? Because I think that's a really good one to close with, so people really know how to, you know, find and determine where they are in this, you know, conversation that we're having. And it seems so simple for us, yet others might be like, what? How do I even figure this stuff out, you know?
Well, first of all, if people would be interested in doing that, they can go to drdemartini.com.
Yeah.
There is a free, private, complimentary methodology that's 13 questions that most ages can handle. And they just answer the questions. And the more honest they are, the more valid the information. And if they answer those questions and follow the steps, which will take about 30 minutes, it will have a beautiful printout looking at what you're really intending and what you're spontaneously doing and demonstrating in your life. Not the fantasies you may be walking around with, which can undermine your life, but the real, what do you spontaneously do daily that your life demonstrates is important to you? And taking the time to do that could be very valuable. You know, how you fill your time, and how do you fill your space, and how do you spend your time, and what is it that energizes you, and where do you spend your money, and where are you most organized, and where are you most disciplined, and what do you think about, visualize, and affirm about how you want your life that shows evidence of coming true? What do you love conversing with about to other people most? What is it that inspires you, brings tears to your eyes? What is it that's most consistent in your goals that are coming true? And what do you spontaneously want to learn? These are the type of the questions that if you answer these, it'll give you an insight about what's really important to you, not the fantasies, but what's really important. And then you can start structuring your life and prioritizing. If you ask, what is the highest priority action I can do today that can help me serve the greatest number of people in the most effective and efficient way with the resources that I have in my mind, and you do that every day, there's no way you're not going to build momentum and automatically become a leader in the process.
Those are really great tools. I'm excited because that's, you know, it makes me excited to even think I had forgotten about that you even have that on your website. Like even to think about doing it for our companies, right? Like for my employees, so they feel like they're actually working in a position in their highest values. You know, I think that's something I'm always looking for too. Like how do I help the people that are even wanting to help me do the things I'm higher valued in? How do I make sure that they're actually living in their highest values too? You know, I think that's something.
Well, what's interesting is nobody goes to work for the sake of a company.
Right.
They go to work to fulfill what they value most. And the company is the vehicle of expression.
Yeah.
And if they can see how the job responsibilities and duties they have, if they can see how it's helping them fulfill their values, their highest values, they'll be engaged. They'll spontaneously do it. You don't need to push them uphill, motivate them, micromanage them.
Yeah.
They'll just do it. But if they can't, you're going to constantly have to be reminding them and retraining them and pushing them and motivating them extrinsically. And that you can't compete in the world marketplaces if you got people that are disengaged. Yeah. So there's a whole system on how to do that in my book, The Values Factor. I go through how to empower all areas of your life. And in my new book, the seven secret treasures that just came out today.
Today?
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know this.
Yeah. So if people will just go and read those two books, they can make a difference. Because what it's doing is helping them see how to master and maximize the potential in all areas of their life, their spiritual quest, their intellectual pursuits, their business, their wealth, their family, their social, their physical, how to empower all those by living congruently. And there's a science to it. It's not rocket science, not too difficult, but if an individual starts applying it, it gives them a competitive advantage and comparative advantage to the people who don't.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that. And I didn't even know that Seven Secrets to Treasures came out just today. So special. And we get to be here with you and to be part of that. I'm real excited to read it. I know
it's definitely on my read list.
Yeah,
now.
I just got to finish another book that's sent off to the publisher 2 days ago called The Resilient Mind.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll be coming out in about 6 weeks, I guess, or 8 weeks.
Wow, that's amazing.
I've got 10 books that are in the making right now. So I'm working away on them.
Well, living your highest values, right? Writing every day.
That's it. I write every day. I write articles for 1,570 magazines, I think now. But I'm constantly researching, writing, teaching, and traveling.
Yeah.
And I believe that people deserve to be able to do what they love and love what they do. Because when they're doing, they're great for life. As Peter Lynch said in 1990s, if he sees a company that the people are grateful for their job, they're loving what they're doing, they're inspired by the vision, they're enthusiastically working, they're present when they do it, and they're certain about their skills, you have a company that cannot do anything but grow and go up in value.
Yeah.
And that's every individual who follows that same path is going to be a contribution to the world.
Dr. John, thank you so much for all of the work that you do and how you give and you show up and you inspire us certainly to continue to see within ourselves how we can just continue to cultivate what we love. And the more we love what we love, the more we love life and the world gets better around us. Our kids get better, our relationships are better, businesses are better, you know? What do you say? Do you have any closing words for Dr. John?
Yeah, honestly, thank you so much. It was so great to speak with you again and hear your insights again. It's amazing to hear. Yeah, and I'm very excited to read your new books because they're definitely on my reading list now. I've been getting really into reading recently, so really excited to read more. Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me be able to do this. You know, my mission is to do this. And so you're helping me fulfill my mission by being here. So thank you.
Yes, awesome.
Thank you.
Well, we will see you very soon, my friend. Where is the next events? Actually, that's actually a better question. Where do we find you next?
I'm doing about 4 events before now and this weekend, but I'll be I think in Tokyo over the weekend. I'm not sure where. And the next week I'll be in Houston. I'm going to actually do a live seminar. I've been doing it on Zoom from my ship for a year and a half now.
Yeah.
But I'll be actually doing a live event. I would just do one in Munich, Germany recently, and just booked another one in London. So I'm doing a little bit online and a little bit offline, traveling.
Nice.
But for the last, 2.5, almost 3 years, we've been doing a lot of online. So I've been very busy.
Yeah.
Traveling the world and doing Zooms. I'm very grateful for it.
Well, we hope to see you in person sooner than later. We'll go to the website, we'll take a look, and and I, again, from the dearest bottom of my heart, from myself, Brian, certainly on behalf of our family, thank you. Just thank you for continuing to be you and showing up.
No, thank you. And thank you for the interview. And Hanalei, thank you for all that you do. And it's an inspiration to see you again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good one, Dr. John. Have a good night.
Brian,
we'll see you soon.
I don't get to see Brian. He's behind the camera.
Oh, he is. But he's going to come over now because he couldn't resist. You didn't have enough space for him in this one. So good.
We're definitely going to have to get a surf together.
Yeah.
All the spots right out here in front.
There's some good spots there, aren't there?
Yeah.
I bet you're right in front of the best surf there.
Uluwatu, Padang, Bingin, the best.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, your place looks fabulous, and thank you for the opportunity to be on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
And I look forward to seeing all of you as soon as nature brings
us
winds
together.
into the trade winds, as they say.
That's it. All right, Dr. John, have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Love you all.